Righto, welcome back. This episode's going to be on the fairlaine. Going to jam some pretty trick parts into it. Mainly a Holley Sniper EFI kit to make it easier to drive in the wild varying weather of the central west of New South Wales. Currently the carbs are 650 Holley, and daily almost you'd need to do ignition timing and choke adjustments because the weather down here is, 20 degrees one day and -4 the other. So this being my daily, just put EFI on it and make it easier. So catch you after the intro, we'll have a bit more of a yarn of it. We're going to put some Daihatsu back in the Daihatsu. Alright, you guys probably haven't seen the fairlaine in a long while, other than in the background of videos. She's pretty much just been parked up. I've been fairly flat out with work, so I've just been driving the work ute. She's undergone a few changes, some minor, some not. I'll give you a shot underneath the engine bay if you can see it. I can't really see it in this because the exposure's gone all funny. Aluminium heads. They're airflow design heads. Bigger in stainless valve, stainless seats. True valve stem guides or bronze valve stem guides and true valve stem seats. Cleveland's have like a funny little bucket, like an umbrella, that sort of prevents the oil splash going down the valve stem guide. They hilariously don't work, they never have. I was looking at pulling the heads off of this, going, by the time you deck the heads, put bigger valves in it, and stainless valves and seats, it was another $500 to buy the alloy ones. So you just spend the money. It was like $3 for the heads. Fair enough. So went it at the cam, pulled the old heads off, put a new set of lifters in it. Had to run guide plates. I went 1.7 ratio crane cams, stainless roller rockers, 8.30 inch in length chrome moly push rods. Unfortunately, the lifter that failed damaged the cam, so I broke the new lifters into the cam. I went for a drive. I was driving. My planned trip was going to be 3 hours. I got an hour into that, and it flattened the lifter. And in turn, the metal fragments went along and flattened the next cam lobe and killed that lifter too. They don't do individual lifters. You've got to buy a set. So now it's solid. It's a new cam. It's a crane cams 465 or 462 from memory. Solid lifters, and I'm still using the same rocker arms and everything on it because, well, if you're going to put lifters in it, don't put hydraulics back in it. Fuck that. And it's not that hard to set valves, really. I set the lash on these when I put it together. Haven't had to touch it since. Just sounds like a Singer sewing machine the whole time. Perfect. Other issue I found when I pulled it back apart after it killed a lifter, the double row timing chain had loosened up. It had also flogged the keyway on the crank and damaged the crank snout. So I fixed that, put another keyway in it, and then I fucked all our cam chain off and went to timing gears. So she's got that, 70s drag car whine about it. Pretty cool. Can't really notice it. Oh, I'm used to it now. Yeah, and she scoots along pretty good. I got, I think, 2 seconds out of the quarter mile. I do have a minor issue. I had to change the harmonic balancer, and I've got a bit of a belt line-up issue. So when you wing it up to 6,500, it drops the belt. So if you get off the pedal at like 55 to 6 grand, the belts stay on there. But when you're at the strip, she's wide open or nothing. So you get to the end of the strip, it'd eat a belt, then that belt zip ties. You go into another run, it'd eat those zip ties. It was a mess. I got like 3 or 4 runs in, but you get that. So yeah, she's gonna look pretty rad. But unfortunately, with the big cam, she's a real pain in the dick to drive. I don't know if you can see there, it has developed a rear main oil seal leak And the brand new crank seal I put in is also leaking, so that's great. Rear main oil seal on this vehicle is a rope seal. I'm not going to machine it for a one-piece seal because I just don't have time. So to do that, it's engine out. While the engine's out, I might as well put a stallie in the auto. While the auto's out, or while the engine's out, I can pull the auto, put a kit through it. It's got an oil leak from the rear seal, which I've already replaced once. I think the bearing's actually gone in there, but you've got to do that from the inside of the tail housing. It's also got an oil leak from the shifter shaft seal, which is common on FMXs. To replace that, you've got to pull the selector out of the auto, which means you've got to pull the valve body off. So that's gearbox out anyway. So for now, we'll put the Sniper EFI on it, and then we'll tackle that further down the road. Alright, one Holley Sniper EFI kit. I bought the master kit, so the throttle carby replacement thing's in there. This part's fuel lines and pump. You can buy the pump and lines yourself, or if you already got it in the car, you can run that too. The fuel pump has to be able to supply 60 psi. I think it actually runs off 43, but they want a bit of safety there. Let's unbox her. Have a Bo Peep. I haven't even had this thing a week, I don't think. Bam! There you go. So there's a big unit there. I'll have a bit of a quick look-see. So vacuum ports for the brake booster and the distributor advance. Don't know if you can see down there. You can't really, but it's annular discharge, so there's a bunch of holes around that, so it sprays even fuel in each throat in from the side, so it atomises a bit better. You can run this as a return or returnless system. I'm going to go returnless for now. If I have any issues, I'll go to a return, so you just leave one of them plugs in, feed pressure on the other side. The Holley kit does come with a new carb gasket. Mine is a bit worse for wear, and I can't remember. I'm running a phenolic spacer here, obviously. Bottom one looks okay, we'll run it. Put the fresh one on top. If I put it the right way, yep. Now, I'm going to see if the throttle butterflies will open up through them holes. If not, I'll have to modify the space up, which is nothing too major. I'll just cut it out. Okay. Yep. We get wide open throttle, so we're good. Alright, let's hit the key. We're done, boys. Nah, there's still fucking heaps to do. Okay, I went to bolt the Holley sniper kit on, and this job got so much more harder. I don't know if you can see, but these back two studs pulled the thread out. So the Holley does have provisions for these inner holes, which just means I won't be able to run the spacer anymore. But oh well. Alright, that only just took an hour. I've had to tape them out to M8, and you'll notice I've had to put this stud further in because that one had a really poorly executed helicoil which has flogged that hole out. So we're using mixed studs everywhere, so well, mixed holes anyway. And the green there, I just threw a bit of bearing retaining compound on just to help it out a little bit, because I believe this is cast zinc, not cast aluminium, so the threads will probably pull out of that super easy. I did dry this morning so the intake's hot. That should let that set up. So on to the rest of the fucking job that needs to get done. Maybe I'll do the fuel system, see what I can't fuck up on that. Alright, there we are, jacked up on a set of 15 by 10 flippers off a comp truck. They come with the diffs for my rock crawler. Now don't fucking race to the comment section to at me about, oh, it's not a good idea to fucking put it on tyres. I know that. I've got 4 jack stands. They're all under the Daihatsu, and this is how I put the exhaust under the fairlaine anyway, so it works. So just fucking don't break your leg getting up out of that seat to race to the computer. She's all good, mate. Fly under there and have a look at her. Alright, we're another big girl. I've got to fit that somewhere in around here. Fuel tank, sender, pickup is there. As you can see, shock absorber, exhaust, brake line. Hard line comes out. Let's see if we can get a better view of it. This is the hard line here for the fuel line. It runs on the inner wheel arch. Here, goes to like a plastic line, which probably won't handle pressure. Into the sill, along. Comes out there in front of the front seat bracket, just there. Back into a hard line. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to mount it all probably vertical here and like do a loop for the fuel filter. That hard line there I'll bend so it aims over this way. So I'll come out of the tank, zip tight to the hard line, out of the tank, filter, pump, filter, back into the hard line and down the chassis rail. I will have to replace this poly line here on the entire length of the sill, which is mildly annoying, but I'll get that. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. Also, I've got a blown shock and a rear pinion seal leak, and that other shock's blown, so that's good. I suppose that's what happens when you use them as daily and don't really do maintenance. Alright, there's the fuel pump mounted with the post filled up. Got to put the inline filter. I'll probably put a loop a hose and then bring it and mount it just below the fuel pump there. Just popped a couple of M5 nut certs in the top there to mount the fuel pump retaining straps. This is already sort of pointing towards the steel line. I'll be able to just cut that down, re-flare the end, and then bend it a little bit so it's just a short little bit of hose, bang bang, straight into the steel. So she's coming along. Alright, so I want to make a nice saddle mount for me feed filter so I can get that nice even radius on that line there. Obviously didn't have a P-clamp that size, so what you can do, get a radiator clamp. They're only stainless, you can drill them. Gonna pop a hole in the back of that, and that should do it. Clamp on there nice and gentle, clamp it down, and that way I can set so I don't kink off this feed line. I was going to use that P-clamp there on the hose, but where I'd have to put the P-clamp is like right in front of the diff housing. I won't get the drill in there to put a nut cert in. I won't even get a drill in there to put a tech screw in. So I'll mount it, I'll fix the fuel filter with my modified hose clamp there, and that should do it, I think. So I'm going to use an M5 bolt cap head, or countersunk head cap head. So I'll go 6mm. Don't mind the mess on the bench. That's just my mate's 9-inch that I was supposed to build for him. 9-inch centre anyway. And the housing he gave me is rooted. So it's stuck here while he's going to buy another housing. It's been 3 months now, I think. So, yeah. That's all fun. There we go. One mount. The hole in it, roughly. That'll do the job. Okay, that's the fuel system bar the wire and done back here. Feed filter, feed line. I just put a bit of heat shielding over that because it's a wee bit close to the exhaust there. It always was, even with the old line. That's the exact heat shield hose that I had on it last time. And then filter out, I just soft lined the whole thing. Nutset, P-clamp again, then down back into the factory hole. So, we'll jump back into the engine bay and start doing that side of it. Oh, yeah. Right. Okay. What I've got here is the Fairlaine's original hard line going to the front of the car. Goes hard about halfway through the passenger side door, joins on out of the sill onto this, so this is already nice and bent. This extends forward past the strut tower, pokes out and points at the fuel pump. Well, I need it now to come out on the other side of the strut tower, close to the firewall, so pretty much in line with that. I'm going to put it in the bench vise, straighten that bend out, and then I've got a measurement on my hand. I want to start my bend 200mm up from the inside of this bend, 90 degrees in, and that'll put it just underneath this air conditioner pipework and the charcoal canister. And then I can just run my soft line from there up. It's already 10mm, it already suits. I'll reflare it when I cut it, and we'll be good to go. So I'll have a run of that. Well, there goes that fucking idea. It just broke cunt off in my hand. So I guess she's going to be flared and soft lined from there. Oh, I've got enough hose. Fuck it. Fuck, that's a pain in the ass. Alright, rubber grommet's in. Now just feed this hose through that. Oh, should be good. I would like to leave it still, but oh well, it broke off. I don't do that. There we go, that should be plenty. Run it, we'll go underneath that earth clamp. Got to go above the aircon pipes maybe, no, that'll kink it. Bolt of P-clamp there, there's a little stud on the firewall, a bolt of P-clamp to that, that'll hold the hose to the firewall, underneath the earth clamp there, nice gradual curve into our fuel in fitting, which is over here. Another Earl's product, Earl's Vapor Guard. Just remember hearing that heaps on the Hot Rod Garage and that. So, where are we going to need to cut that? Underneath there. Or do I run it? Nah, that'll look shit. Up under there. P-clamp the firewall there. That should look alright. You know, if I had like a 45, I could probably get a 45, but not today. So, let's cut it about there. Alright, I fucked up a little bit. You may be wondering why I'm holding my fuel tank sender in my hand. Remember how I said you could run that as a deadhead? You can, if you use Holley's fuel tank adapter, which has a 60 psi fuel pressure regulator built in. So without that, you have to run a return. So they give you all the bits at least. And I had a look at drilling into the tank. The fuel filler neck's 2 inches round. I can't get my hand in there, so I won't be able to put it in the tank, because obviously that's a compression fitting. You've got 2 nuts, 2 gaskets. You have to be able to do that up. Right, so next best thing is into the fuel sender. I've got a nice little pocket right there. The one thing is, and it does come with it, you need a hose so the fuel flow doesn't just start bouncing this thing around. So it's got a flexible sort of convoluted hose that should be able to extend it away from this and stop the fuel gauge bouncing around. Not that the fuel gauge is very accurate in this thing anyway. Alrighty, got my hole drilled in there. Unfortunately, where the O-ring face seal sits is going to overlap a little bracket that's the support for this pipe. So I'm going to have to grind it away. These things are fucking lifesavers. Finger sanders, mini belt sanders, there's a few different names. Fucking handy. I'll be able to just get in there, flick it out of the way, and away you go. The belts are pretty expensive. Oh, not pretty. They cost a bit. But back when Masters was shutting down, I can remember them idiots. They were selling them packs of 5 for $1. So I went and bought the whole shelf. I've got them sitting up on the shelf, my shelf now. And I got everything from 120 grit up to 40 grit, I think. Which is handy for getting into those hard to reach spots, eh? Alright, you can sort of see where I was saying. I just had to nick that out there, because that little O-ring face seal sits there and it was sitting on top of the bracket. So I just opened her up. Now this thing, I screw it off with my fucking hand. It's a bulkhead connector. I had to screw the fucking nut on, didn't I? Up there like that. And screw that down. Please have enough clearance. Oh baby. Alright, there we go. One fuel return. And then there's a hose tail that goes on there, and then this will go on there. And I'll probably zip tie it down to the fuel feed pipe there. Get a nice bend on it. So yeah. Now the only thing is, in this big ass shed, I've got all this shit in this shelf, and I don't have like 5 meters of 10mm fuel line. So where I'm living at the moment, because of the snap lockdown, everything's click and collect. So I guess I'll click and collect 10 meters of fuel line. I'm sure that's going to suck a bag of dicks for my bank account anyway. And then we'll be able to actually finish the fuel system, but I'll carry on. It's about 5 o'clock. I'm starting to run out of daylight. I'll carry on as long as I can doing, might look at the wiring now, button this up and get it back in the tank. Alright, day 2. So as we left off, I've got to run a return line for this unit. Obviously the fairlaine being carbureted, didn't have a return line originally. That's okay. I already drilled a hole in the inner guard to suit the feed line. I'll just do another hole, pop in another firewall grommet and run it. Unfortunately, the biggest issue was that's all the line I've got left. And there wasn't as much hard line in the fairlaine as I thought there was. There was more that plastic line. It sort of dips into the inner sill and then back out, comes underneath the passenger side floor into the passenger side wheel arch, and then it run along the inside of the strut tower and poked out just underneath the horns there. So there was only hard line at either end, and it was plastic in the middle. So I had to use the majority of the rubber hose supplied on the feed line. So I just nicked down to, I've got a mate to take me down to Super Cheap, just click and collect, which is a real pain in the dick. And bought 6 metres of line at an exuberant cost, $20 a metre, so that's alright. I'm an idiot. I probably should have thought about this more, or maybe looked at the car before I decided to pull it apart. Today's Sunday and I got work on Monday, so it's got to be going by this afternoon. So I've got enough hard line laying around. I can probably recreate the hard line dipping underneath the passenger side floor pan where it dips into the passenger side sill. So I'll do that because obviously if I blow a tyre or something, I don't really want it to rip a hole in a fuel line. So there's something to shed. I'll bend it up, copy the shape of the factory steel feed hard line that's there. Nutsert P-clamp, mount it all up pretty. And then yeah, run that up through the sill. And I don't know, cable tie it probably to the feed line so it's away from the exhaust, and then down into the fuel pickup. It's going to be a pain. I had to put the 90 pointing towards it's in the passenger side corner of the fuel tank. The only way I could get the AN bulkhead fitting in was I had to point it towards the driver's side, so the line's going to have to sort of do a loop into the return. But that's okay. Otherwise it was basically pointing directly at the exhaust. It would have had to do a sharp 90. I don't have a 90-degree AN fitting barb adapter here, and I've got to drive it tomorrow, so I've got enough line now, 6 metres of it. If it want to work, I spent enough money on the bloody thing. And then we get into the wiring. I'm going to run the fuel pump wiring through the cabin, along with the fuel sender wiring, because that comes along driver's side, sort of underneath the scuff plates on the inside of the seat there, and then curves around, and then I'll just chase it, fleece tape it when you see it in the boot, and we'll be good to go. Then I'll just ground the fuel pump to the fuel pump bracket. I've already redone the chassis and engine grounds on this, so I should be able to just ground it to the body back there and get full 12-volt feed anyway. So, alright, that's the feed and the return plumbed. Here's positive for my fuel pump. Let's bleed some air out of it. Alright, we've got fuel coming out the return. I don't see any fuel leaks either. I think we're doing good. Alright, let's shut it down there. Don't want to get burning the pump out before I even get to use it. Alright, we'll simmer down on the fuel pump wiring for now. What I'm going to do so I can get it off the jack stands, make it a bit easier to work inside, I've still got to do the O2 sensor bung. So there's 2 types they do. This is obviously a clamp-on one, uses intercooler clamp. Pop a hole, it's got the exhaust gasket paper there. Clamp holds it all to the pipe. That's a 2.5 inch pipe, which is what I have. They do a weld on one underneath the car, and this is a bit hard to get the welder in, a TIG or MIG. I done the exhaust on it, so I should know. I had to pull that thing out about 1,000 fucking times to get that done. So I'll go the clamp on for now. If I have any issues with it leaking, I'll go the weld on, but I'll have to pull pipework out to do that. At least I'll have it situated. So the idea of these is, you don't want them directly in the bottom of the pipe, because the moisture will sit on the end of the oxygen sensor. It's a hot wire, it'll end up burning out. So somewhere higher than midpoint on the pipework. There is a thing, I think it's best case scenario is 15 degrees down. We'll aim for that, but trying to get a Christmas tree drill bit in there and a drill and whatnot might be a wee bit of a pain in the arse. So we'll get it as close to good as we can without pulling the exhaust out. You see all the oil underneath here, that's from the rear main seal that decided to say, see you later neighbour, and roll out. That's a job for some other time. Come on now, get in there. That should be good. About there. About there, I reckon. I'm not too worried about the bolts hanging down. The exhaust scrapes on everything anyway. This thing's low as fuck. I'm actually thinking about pulling 1/2 inch to 1 inch out of the rear just to get the arse end a bit higher. Maybe that's why it blew the shocks out. It's always bottoming them out. But a job for another day. Alright. So there's a bunch of wires in this plug that I'm not going to use. I've already potted a couple out of the other plug. That was to do with a NST style mag pickup distributor or coiling cap HEI distributor. Pulled that out of the other plug. So I'm just going to take a bit of wire down there, bend the tab, pull the ones out I don't need. The wire diagram there. We'll start narrowing this down to what I do and don't need. So in this plug there's 2 triggers for thermo fans, and I do want to run thermo fans in this eventually. I don't have them at the moment, I'll buy them and put them in. So I'll leave them in. The white wire here is a positive for the points, which I don't have, electronic distributor. I've also got orange is trigger from the AC for an idle up once the AC's on, which that'll come out. There's also a programmable input for ground, user definable. I might leave that in. What else? I've got another one, optional grey. This is where it gets a bit hard for me because I'm going a bit colourblind. So is that grey or green? Well, there's a green in there, so I'm going to assume that's grey, so that's coming out. Dark green crank signal. But I got it worked out. So I've deleted one wire out of this bundle. So all that's left is everything that's needed. So that big long blue wire, that's fuel pump positive. Red and black obviously, positive and negative direct from the battery. You cannot ground the black, it has to go to the battery. Pink is accessories ignition, has to have constant 12 volt whilst the car is cranking, otherwise it will result in a no start. Yellow is tack signal for the Holley EFI from the negative side of the coil. So I only pulled one plug out of that, it's okay. And then look at this one, Jesus, she's pretty nude now. Alright, so we've got light green and blue, they are fan 1 and 2 triggers. And then brown is tack signal out. You cannot run a tack off the coil anymore. The Holley needs a clean signal for RPM, and then it will output a signal from the ECU in the unit to go to your tachometer. So I pulled all them out, bundled them up because I might need them. This plug, that's obviously for your HEI coiling cap distributor. You might look at going into that. If you use one of them or an MSD box or a mag pickup DIS, you can get the Holley EFI to control timing. That will also do retarding for nitrous oxide as well as fuel enrichment. They're all labelled. The wiring diagram tells you which bung to put them back in there. The only ones I probably will maybe end up using, there's a tan wire in there, or sandy torque for you Land Cruiser boys. Which is a digital gauge output. You plug it into a part number 554-130 gauge module, and it will run Holley EFI analog gauges for water temp, oil pressure, stuff like that. I might look at doing that. I've already got an external water temp gauge in this because the factory ones burn out. It's okay. She's not wide, it's just sort of boogered together at the moment. But I wanted to hear her run. So, book says, ignition on, to reds, this screen will light up. Oh, fancy. Now you go to Wizard, and which one do I have? 550-510. next. Number of cylinders, 8, next. Engine displacement is 351, about 351, next. Target idle speed, we'll go 700 for now. I want it a bit lower. Next. Cam, street strip, next. Power outer, nitrous oxide, not yet bud. Coil negative, which is what I'm running, so you can mag pick up, Holley dual sync, you gotta buy that off them. They currently don't do one for bloody through Cleveland, but you get that. Start. Please cycle ignition to complete operation. You hear the fuel pump start? That's sweet. Now this big girl has a habit of bouncing herself into reverse on first start, so pushing on, fuel pump's running, sounds good. Now the throttle cable's not hooked up, so I can't fucking open the throttle to give her a bit of pedal. Let's see if I can jerry-rig something. Alright, she's pretty loud at the moment. She's currently doing a bit of learning. Trying to anyway. Trying to target 800 RPM for the idle. The idle air control valve just sort of doing whatever it needs to do at the moment. It's still hodgepodge hooked up. I haven't run it through the car. I wanted to make sure the unit actually worked first. I thought the issue with it having a hard time hunting and finding idle might have been battery voltage. It was only 12.5 volts, so I just put the jump pack on it. And it stalled. Stall, stall, stall. Yep. I don't know. A bit more fiddling. But it's getting there. At least it runs. Alright, I got it. So, worked out what it was. I'm guessing in the box it got jostled around. The throttle position sensor plug was unplugged. I didn't know what it was doing. So, I set the idle pretty high for initial start. I wanted 850. But still sort of hunting around a little bit, that's to be expected. So, now it's just a matter of getting the idle air control valve to meet up with the actual idle screw. That's better. Now that it works, I can actually wire it. I was getting a might be worried there because I have heard of issues where they come with like a dead injector or the idle air control valve motor is sticky and they've had to send them back, and I ain't pulling all the fuel system out of that to run it on carb again. What a fucking champion! One little issue, I should have stared at it a bit up. Alright, time to route some wiring. So all I did, that brown wire is tax signal for my Monster Taco in the cab. These two are the triggers for the thermo fans, which I'm eventually going to use. All I did was put the plug in the vise, put the wires in the drill and twisted them up together, just to make it easier. Then fleece taped it and then bundled them up. I'll end up cutting that apart. The brown wire, I don't know whether I'm going to run that into the cab or not, because I've already got, that's my tax signal wire there that used to go to my coil, which I can't use now. So I might be able to, that plug's on the back of the carb, I might be able to just put a butt connector on both of them, because that's already, the red wire there is already going into the cab, and plug it in, and then that'll just sit there. That's one wire done. Then the That's most of the wire and harness tucked. I've terminated the positive and negative for the Sniper EFI. I've verified that I do have a constant form of ignition 12 volt in the engine bay. I'm just going to de-loom that, pull it back through so it's up closer to the Sniper harness, nothing too major. And then I've got to mount my relay and fuse block for the whole lot. Unfortunately, I put it in a bit of a shit spot. For me, it's going to have to be in the pocket underneath the driver's side bonnet hinge next to the brake master cylinder. There's just not enough length in that loom to get it on the front of the shock tower, and if I did, the window washer bottle's there anyway. And then I just got a wide fuel pump, which is nothing major. That's already chased, solder, shrink on, done. I've got to rush through this a bit because I'm losing weather. She's going fucking shit around here. It's been blowing a gale and getting grey and grey, so I'll knock this out and we'll hit you with a running / maybe driving video in a minute. So. Alright, we're all in, we're all buttoned up. One annoying thing is it's pissing down rain. I was able to get the majority of the wiring done when it was mostly dry. Good. So this thing's doing its self-learning thing. One thing I have noticed is the idle's a little funny. Having a hard time catching the cam at the moment. I did set the cam specs up in the tuning software as street strip. I might have to go, there's another one that's race, and the cam box did say not for road use, so maybe I'll select race and it might make the idle air control motor move a bit quicker. But it does get there, it doesn't let it stall. It's just been, I'm trying to target 700 RPM and it's been dropping it to 5 in gear. That's right, but just going for a lap up around the mountain in the pouring rain, which is super annoying. But if you've got a carbon car, I'll tell you right now, just spend the money and do it. The throttle response on this thing is ridiculous. My carb always had a hesitation off idle, no matter what I did with it. I changed jets, I changed squirter, I changed pump cams, it always had a hesitation off idle. This thing, absolute animal. And she scoots. Gotta be a bit careful here, she's quite bloody wet up here. And the rain's only getting heavier. The Holley touchscreen showing pretty much every sensor at the moment and engine RPM. Just propped up in my ashtray. I've put it in the glove box. I'm not going to have it out on display all the bloody time, but it is handy to look at. So lugging it with the old carb, lugging it in a too high gear like I did just then, it'd always ping like it was pulling heaps of vacuum on the vacuum advance of the Dizzy. So I had to pull a boatload of timing out to compensate. I'm wondering now, is it just an issue with the carb altogether, because this thing hasn't pinged once and it's the exact same ignition timing I had set up in it, and it did ping a couple of times coming back to your brother's house last time I drove it. I put it down to a bad batch of gas. This thing is just an absolute trooper. I still don't have a kickdown rod, so this thing's just sitting in top gear, which is third being an FMX, it's a 3-speed auto. It will kick itself down in a second on the roll though, so that's alright. I'm pretty happy with it, I can tell you. Pretty happy. And just bump the key, bang. Fires, idles, she's good thing. So right now it's trying to idle it
600 RPM at the moment. If I click her up into neutral, it jumps straight back up to that 700. So I'll change that setting over to race for the can profile. There is other adjustments you can do for the ramp up speed and ramp up amount for the idle air control motor. Like, I might have to, well, maybe look into that, because I'm just having a little hard time with the load. Went off in the 80s, hit that tree. Woo. Oh my legs, so hang on to yourself. You got some fucking colour response now. Good thing. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. So we'll shut it down here. Thanks for watching. Next episode I'll hopefully maybe be working on Daihatsu again. I've got to make a press tool up to press floor pan profile, so that should be fun, and then I'll be able to weld them in and button the floor pan up. The engine is still sitting in my brother's house, 3K and the 2-speed Toyo Glide Auto, and I'm planning either a Suzuki transfer case or Hilux transfer case. I've got a Hilux T case, I've got a Patrol T case in there too, I don't have a Suzuki one. I'll mock up the Hilux one underneath in the video, we'll see what sort of size we're dealing with. The good thing about the Hilux one is the flanges are the same, so I won't have to play with tail shells all that much. I might just have to link them. But this rain's only going to get worse, so you guys keep the rubber side down, and I'll catch you next time, eh? Righto.